crave. So you guys are the good ones that are prioritizing, well, personal development, health, all these good things that tend to get lost in the shuffle of life. So in the chat, just drop your name, area of the city if you're in Winnipeg. If you're not in Winnipeg, where you're tuning in from. I just want to get a sense, a pulse for the group we have today, just so I can let time tick by before we jump into the training. Make sure no one gets left in the waiting room here. It's not a perfect system. We got Trevor out in Alberta. I love it. Lorette, Lita, Jason, hotel at the airport. Do what you got to do. I love it. Claudette's in Winnipeg. We got Alicia in White Ridge, my old stomping grounds. Erica, Newfoundland. Love it. We got Darcy, Saskatchewan. Kirsten, Abbotsford, representing. Although she was here 2 weeks ago for our retreat. Yes, yes. Diane from Winterpeg, although it's pretty summer peg right now. We're in that nice time of the year that makes us forget winter briefly. Paul from Toronto. St. John Baptiste. Okay, Danny in Winnipeg. Okay, awesome. If you come in as guest, that's just the general link. You can change your name with the 3 dots because I might be trying to talk to you and it says guest. I don't know who I'm referring to. So without further ado, I think we can jump in and deliver as promised the training. Okay. So quick thumbs up if you see an AI image of a girl on the beach. Yes, good stuff. All right. Drop weight without losing your mind. I'd say without losing your social life too. It's kind of the promise of today's call. We got Janet in Manitou. Tammy, I know where you are, out in BC. Awesome. So this is what I want you guys to feel coming out of this call is just pumped for life. Maybe not. It's a bold promise, but nonetheless, we want to give you clarity on fitness, weight loss, all this stuff that there is a maze of information out there. No shortage of information. Where the disconnect is like personalizing it to you and implementing, actually following through, right? And that's what we're going to try to bridge that gap today. So the real goal, though, is to help you drop 10 plus pounds in 6 weeks. If you're human, you've left it to the last minute and you realize, oh crap, my summer clothes are a little tight. Like to trim up a little bit without losing my sanity. That's what we're going to focus on today. All right. What we don't want you falling into the trap of today is that all or nothing approach. Because likely you would crash diet, lose some weight till July 1st, and then gain it all back and then some by September. So that you're in that vicious cycle we talk about, where you work super hard in spurts, fall off the wagon, end up exactly where you are today or worse. So there is a better way. And Danielle, you're drawing on the screen. So hopefully you can undo that. That's one feature I haven't been able to disable. So agenda for today's call. Thank you. Again, I think I already talked about this, but in the email, I promised to go through the 5 habits my clients over 40 use. We have to start there. That's the foundation. Without those in place, nothing else I really tell you is going to move the needle. But we're also going to show you how to kind of bridge into maintenance over summer, embrace those weekends at the cottage, and break even, essentially. And then some tactical fat loss hacks, because that's what brings people in. And it makes a difference. We'll get to it, but I wanted to at least do today's call, starting with the top of the pyramid, the highest priority, and working our way down. Okay. So that's the promise. One commitment I need from you guys is just to try to have 1 million tabs closed on your browsers. Undivided attention is super appreciated. I'm going to try to keep this to 30 to 45 minutes, so there's some time for questions. But use the chat to engage and participate. That would be awesome as well. Okay. And then at the end, for someone who's paying attention, who's participated, we're going to put your names in a hat for a copy of my book. All right. So trying to save you years of trial and error, because I was the guy that did all the wrong things early on, right? I tipped the scales by 262 pounds is the most I ever weighed, at least in terms of actually physically seeing it on the scale. And that was early 20s. So I was young enough to reverse course, right? I'm going to challenge you that no matter what age you are, you're young enough to reverse course today. And apologies for the after underwear shot. But that's what we largely look like today, plus or minus a few percentage points of body fat. So 20 years since that initial transformation where I bounced around a lot until I hired a guy named Ken Hill, online coach before online coaching was really a thing. And well, he sent me an email once a week and basically gave feedback. It's a lot better nowadays, the delivery model for coaching, but it did work because it prevented me from falling for all the shiny objects I was previous to that point. And I had good old accountability, right? And now, well, a lot of you were introduced to me in the free press or on the radio in Winnipeg, right? There's a lot of Winnipeg connections here still. It's not purely an online virtual world in that regard, but a lot of you did come through the doors through social media, through my Instagram, through a friend, or whatever the case may be. But in the last 12 years, 1,600 plus people have went through the program, and we pride ourselves on results. So if I could give my 20-year-old self advice, this is going back a little bit before that to Laidlaw School, which is like a hybrid junior high school, where I got the nickname Mitch Tits. So apologies if there's kids within earshot, but I was the chubby kid that got made fun of, the old rags to riches story that a lot of fitness coaches have been through. And that's my story too, is where that pain became the initial spark to get in shape. And then, hey, I can help people like my former self. And I backed my way into this career after going through many years of university for a communications degree, only to go back for kinesiology. So a lot of money spent there. It wasn't the most effective. Nonetheless, that's my problem, not yours. So how did I get from here to where I am today? Someone's in the waiting room. Just a sec here. Okay. Good. Yeah, you should be active now. So high school is the next step. Let me close this. I just found dieting very difficult when I first started. And it was largely because I go down the path most people go down, where they see something online, they think that's the secret. And I certainly did that. And then I thought running was like the tool, right? The fat loss tool. Oh boy, was I wrong there. I was doing half marathons and I was still skinny fat. And that was frustrating to see, like, holy man, I'm working hard enough. And I certainly was, but I was missing a couple key elements. And then I did the CrossFit and the boot camps. And again, came home ravenously hungry, overate, stayed stuck. So we're going to try to help you with all those scenarios. So first up, pop quiz. In the chat, if you believe any of these to be true, just type the letter in the chat, or F if it's none of the above. There's no wrong answers here. A, metabolism slows down with age. Carbs are the cause. Seed oils are the issue. If you've been following the wrong influencers, you might believe that one. Men have better genes for fat loss. We'll get into that a little bit. It's not as cut and dry as you think. Maybe all of them, or maybe none. A, we've got metabolism slows with age. All right. Lots of A's. Oh, good. We're going to smash the heck out of that one. D are true for me. Oh, we'll challenge you on that, Danielle, as well. F. F is none of the above. Good stuff. Okay. Well, actually, so that makes sense. I think that was where I thought most people's heads would be at. So we're going to smash you over the head with some science and support, essentially. Okay. One by one. So again, one more question for you. Type 1 in the chat if getting fit requires sacrificing your social life, or 2 for no. Depends on the degree of social life, right? If you're a binge drinker 4 times a week, then yes. If it's going out to dinner, going out with friends, heck no. Yeah. It might require some adjustments, but certainly not complete sacrifice. No need to live like a hermit. We got some 2s. Okay, good. You're on the same page there. So we'll go into some strategies for that as well. So I think this is going to be beneficial for all of you. First, though, let's get this off the table. Healthy body fat is higher than you think. You know, a fitness model, a cover of a magazine, airbrush might suggest the only fit body for a man is like visible abs, 8% to even 15%. You got a little bit of definition coming through. In fact, at least according to research, somewhere between picture 4 and 5 is the sweet spot. Sustainable sweet spot. Why is that? Well, a number of reasons. To achieve this really ripped physique, there's often health costing measures taken. Steroids, stimulants, extreme dietary measures, over exercising, et cetera, et cetera. There are some men that less than 1% that can kind of maintain a six pack without doing a whole lot, that's not likely you, or you wouldn't be on this training, right? So for men, same for women, the numbers are a little higher. Between the fifth picture even and the sixth, 30-ish%. Okay. So you don't need to be cover model lean. In fact, you could do so in sprints if you want to get a good photo or something along those lines. But to sustain a healthy, fit body that's built to last, it might be more fat than you believe or think. It's probably leaner than you are now, though. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. So no need for that visual. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Type of one in the chat if that's resonating. The good news is to get to this extreme, oof, a lot of sacrifice. To get here, not so much. Same thing for women. Oh God, I keep going with this photo, but this is where I feel my worst, when I'm the leanest and I've got ab veins. So for me personally, some guys can maintain that okay. For me personally, I do that maybe for a competition, photo shoot, something or other, but for the most part, I don't hang around that number because life is a hell of a lot better from in terms of sleep, my dietary balance, and my mood when I'm a little bit fatter, okay? So the old way versus the new way. We have to get this part straight. So before we even get into any tactics, the 5-inch space between the ears is where the battle is won and lost. Okay, so I talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect. When I first started, I was on the peak of Mount Stupid here, right? Where you buy into anything you read online, any influencer with a supplement, you're pulling out your credit card. And sooner than later, though, you realize, oh crap, there's actually some work involved. I have to change my identity, my habits. And you get stuck in this valley of despair here where it begins to become a grind and you question whether it's worth it. But if you break through that, this is where every client in CalFit, I'm determined to get them to, this is certainly where I am now, is that slope of enlightenment where we realize, okay, it's just who I am now to do these good things. And you get to the plateau of sustainability, maintenance. So that there are times when you can diet down if you want to get a little bit leaner for summer, or you just hold serve and you continue your good habits and you've won when you've got to that place because there's no turning back, at least not for long. So I'd be curious to know which stage of that you're in. If you're, well, open to sharing, are you on the peak of Mount Stupid? Most people on there don't realize they are. Or are you in the valley of despair, grinding it out, struggling to see if it's worth it? Or maybe you're already at the plateau, which is a huge win. So this is essentially, I've shared this with our members already, and I think this one really resonated, is you've got to become more in flow with your goals. Because if you're white knuckling everything, you're forcing yourself to go to the gym, forcing yourself to eat chicken, cutting out everything you enjoy, you're not going to last, right? But if you're in flow, you know, I've got my 3 workouts in, I enjoy them, I've got these meals I enjoy, and I'm imperfectly perfect, right? You're going to be able to sustain this, which is essentially the key to success. Got some comments in chat. Okay, we got some people on the plateau, which is good. Also, when you're forcing it, you tend to be outcome obsessed. The scale doesn't move this week. You get frustrated. You do something stupid. You self-sabotage. When really, we're on kind of a spiral to our goals. It's not a staircase. And even if you're moving forward, it looks like you're not at times. But as that spiral goes up, gradually over time, you become a new person inside and out, physically and mentally. And that's really when you get to that plateau of sustainability. Okay. We're going to get into, I'm not good enough. I don't have good enough genes. I'm too old to get in shape. Then that creates negative emotions, fear, doubt, anxiety. It says my internet connection is unstable. You guys can still hear me? Okay. So those negative emotions obviously lead to the wrong kind of actions. You start to binge eat, emotional eating. You say, F it. You get weekenditis, where you blow your plan for 4 days. And then, see, I knew I would fail. You reinforce it and becomes stuck in a cycle that really becomes self-fulfilling. Where, oh, well, I can't put myself in that environment because it led to drinking too much and I'm empowered. I learned from it. I grow from every setback or experience. That's the positive emotions, the curiosity, the confidence that you can keep pushing through when you have setbacks. And then, of course, your actions align with that. You make better choices, you get better results. Make sense? It all starts up here, for better or worse. All right, now that the woo-woo's out of the way, type a yes if that makes sense. You appreciate the mindset piece. Good. All right. So now we'll get into the tools, right? Before we do that, though, this is one of the problems with a lot of people's diets. They do cardio and calorie counting only. Somehow it grows you a third arm. I just noticed that in the photo. AI is not perfect, clearly. But even if the scale is going down steadily, you can lose as much as half of that weight in lean mass. So your body fat percentage is not going down. Counterproductive, but the research bears this out. Even those in Ozempic studies that just take the drug and eat less. It's not enough, right? It's not enough. You lose the same amount of muscle as fat. Your metabolism kind of tanks in the process. You don't look any different. Your health improving, maybe if you're really overweight, but for the most of us, it's not an ideal scenario. So you want some cardio, certainly, but you want to focus on strength training and macro-based nutrition. Okay, so we'll talk about what that is, but you know, a couple simple things you prioritize. You don't lose too fast, and you can lose nearly all body fat, even build some muscle, depending on how advanced you are. All right, so the big five. If you're a client like those on the call, hopefully you're familiar with these. You're not doing your homework. We've got cap control, nutrition, calories, and protein. Those two are the only variables that really matter from a weight change perspective. Hydration, 3L club, right? Can't change your situation without hydration. Prioritizing sleep, as hard as that is at times, that's when you breathe out body fat. That's when you recover from your workouts. That's when you build up that willpower reserve, have less cravings the next day. And then strength training for obvious reasons we talked about, and steps, because we are so sedentary nowadays, we have to force it. We have to schedule it in. So simple as enough is to take what your calorie maintenance is and deduct 15%. Start there. If you want to get really aggressive, I would go no more than 25% below your maintenance calories. You'll be suffering and probably a rebound. Okay. So hopefully you've got the math on that. We can certainly go into that at the end. And then you're just going to take your goal body weight, multiply it by 1, very simple math. And that's the amount of protein in grams per day, not weighted grams. That's the macro, right? So if your goal is 180 pounds, 180 grams spread out over 4 meals, 40 grams roughly per meal. And we want to front load protein and fiber to control hunger throughout the first part of the day. Okay. Water, I don't even know if we really need to go there. I think everyone understands the value in that. In some cases, if you're peeing too much, add some sea salt electrolytes to it. That just helps you better utilize that water, okay? And drink before meals. I guess that would be the footnote I put here. Because it does take the edge off the appetite. Generally, in studies that show you consume less calories when you do. Sticky note on my water. Right on cue. Sleep. Talked about this already. I can give you the standard tips everyone has seen and heard before about trying to limit your blue light exposure from your screens. Maybe wear blue light blocking glasses if it really comes to the head where you can't. A cool room is key. Consistent schedule is probably the most important. And, the timing of meals and liquids. Everyone's a little bit different, but generally at least 2 to 3 hours out. Trying to cut off your meals and taper off the water. We won't get into real specifics here, but it's not what you see in a strip mall circuit class. It's lifting things up, putting them down, getting stronger over time. All that really matters is that most sets are taken to a point where you're almost close to having to drop the weight. You can no longer perform the exercise with good form. If you're just repping it out and you're not even breathing heavy, a little bit of calorie burn, sure, but in terms of toning, tightening, it's not going to happen that way, right? Okay. We've got previous trainings on this. I can certainly send. Just want to make sure we're getting through this quickly. And the last but not least is your daily step count. The sweet spot is 8,000 to 10,000 steps for no other reason than that's generally the most sustainable range and supports obviously the nutrition intake with your fat loss. It just allows you to earn a bit more food. Caution against that, but it gives you a buffer. And post-meal walks would be my hack. Like every meal, 5 minutes afterwards, a little movement does you well. All right, type of 1, if all is good so far, making sense on the habits. No one's sleeping yet, as far as I can tell on the screen, so that's a good sign. Good, good. All right, we'll take those. Flooding in. Tammy's sleeping. All right, why most diets fail. All in enthusiasm. Usually it's 2 weeks of motivation if you're on your own, and it fizzles out, and you start over Monday with a new plan. Life will happen inevitably, so you have to know that almost the best time to start something is when you're busy. This is a real limiting belief that, oh, you know what? It's not the right time. I've got XYZ. My dog ate my homework. Those excuses are always going to be there unless you decide to give up all your life's possessions and kids and responsibilities. You've got to learn to build out your health around all that. Okay. And then have a plan B for when things happen. Okay. The screw it spiral. So this is where you screw up. By definition, I wouldn't call this a screw up, a small deviation from your plan. You went out, your buddies were a bad influence, had a couple of drinks, ate a bit of the wrong foods. How you respond to that is what matters. And most people are like, day is ruined. Might as well keep going. I'll restart Monday. You want to have a short memory and win the next meal. Just learning that change, making that shift in your head is going to make all the difference between progress or plateau. And these columns are mixed up here, but we want commitment. We want habits. We don't want to rely on motivation because that might be the initial spark that gets us going. Something triggers us to be motivated to make a change, but that never lasts. You know, it fades quickly. So we want to have our non-negotiables like we talked about, those 5 habits. All right. I already talked about these 2 things. So 6 more tips. I would be taking a bit of notes here. Some of these might be new to you, are worth exploring, but might not make sense for you either. So I caution against that. I don't love fasting through lunch and having an eating window. It limits your recovery for workouts. It often creates this crazy hunger in some. Some people can do it okay. Some people can be fine fasting through to 1 p.m. and not overeat beyond that. I've tried to fit a square peg in a round hole myself on this many times before. I always do better if I have a heavy dose of protein within a couple hours waking up. And the science bears it out. So what's something you are going to do to get protein in? What's your go-to breakfast? Greek yogurt and berries? Scrambled eggs, like the picture here? I'm more of a smoothie guy because I just can't be bothered to prepare anything first thing. I'd love to get some ideas in the chat, but no pressure. Diet uniform is another hack. It saves you a lot of time in tracking. You're going to save a ton of money too. But eating the same 2 to 3 breakfast lunches on repeat, maybe it's your leftovers from the night before, you just carry over into the next day's lunch. You know, for me, like I said, the smoothie is my go-to, but protein French toast on the weekends. Generally, I don't have a big appetite first thing, but I do like to hit that protein before 10 a.m. rule. So it comes down to a couple of options. And I don't even have to think about it. I enjoy it enough to be okay with it. Yeah, we've got some easy options in the chat. Turkey sausage, I've been doing that lately, actually. That's not bad. Okay. So have your go-tos and try not to deviate. This is at least for your weekdays, right? Weekends can be a little different. The 1 plate rule at social events. I was out with, I was at a conference about this time last year with a coach who loaded up a plate, but that was it. And he said this has been his gold standard rule when he goes to events, social events. He grabs a little bit of the things he wants, but it's got to fit on one plate and no going back for seconds. So that works for him. So you survey all the available options. You obviously fill your plate with the good stuff, but then use the remaining space for what you feel is worth your calorie allowance. Might not be for you, but I would suggest this has helped me in a lot of ways because I was the type to graze a lot. Okay, treat meal strategy. So I hate this cheat day mentality a lot of us have. I was there before. I would do keto for like 6 days and then I'd cook up all these crazy recipes in my head. Like I'd have a full like healthy cake I'd make and just binge. And it was really, it became an eating disorder. Let's be honest here. So we want you in the mindset that every day you can have a little treat, but then, hey, we have a little bit of a free space on the bingo card for something that might be pizza night with the family, where you have a few slices, or you go for sushi or a meal and you just plan the rest of the day around it, you know? And it's planned and tracked ideally if you're in a real focus zone right now, but it's not guilty, right? There's a psychological benefit to having that, knowing you have that to look forward to. Okay. And potentially hormonal benefit later in the process, the leaner you get. Okay. So next up, I'm not a huge fan of HIIT. I think people abuse this and think they can erase their diet with hard exercise. And the more you sweat, the more you burn. No, very little fat is being melted away in sweat. But what this does is it has a real benefit for your heart and improves like nutrient partitioning, right? You just utilize carbs better after the workout. No different than you really get from strength training. But there is some benefit to either HIIT if your knees can take it. You know, on a stationary bike, it's pretty low impact, or you play a recreational sport. That's my go-to. That's the only time I really sprint, when I'm trying to score goals in beer league. Or you wear a weighted vest, low impact walk, right? Adds a lot of extra resistance. I would argue if it's the workouts you like, Danielle, then maybe, but depends on the duration and frequency. You can really burn yourself out with it. Spike your stress hormones, overeat, not gain muscle from it either. So I'm really a big proponent of weight bearing exercise. We call them like antagonist supersets, where you're still not sitting around bored in a workout, but you're training muscle groups that are non-competing. Yeah, fit body boot camp. Yeah, not a fan personally. Sorry, Danielle. But if it's working for you, get on it. For most, it doesn't. All right. Peptides, not my area of expertise, but we get a lot of questions about these now because you're getting ads on your Instagram feed. I would caution against buying stuff randomly on the internet. However, I go to bodybuilders when I want the most cutting edge information on fat loss because they are willing to do whatever it takes to get a six pack, screw their long-term health. And I'm way beyond that stage of life. I have kids and lots of reasons to live for, but these are two that keep coming up. So do your own homework. I have no personal experience with them. Retatrutide is in phase 3 trials. So that means it's close to being FDA approved, which means it could be prescribed for a doctor down the road, but you can buy this stuff online. I don't know who's making it. Compounding agencies in the States, I guess. And people are using that. It's just a next level Ozempic, where I'm not sure if it's the solution. It might be part of the solution. And then this one I can't even pronounce, Sloop 332, is actually just a pill that elevates resting energy expenditure, which is uncharted territory because everything that did that previously was like really unhealthy for us. Like ephedrine, heart rate goes way up and you don't sleep and you're stressed and anxious. So there is some, at least in bodybuilding circles, some benefit to that. I told you I was sharing everything today. I am not advocating for you to go online and look these up. Okay, just do your homework. Okay. Next up, the two you're more familiar with. So these are the Gen 1 and 2 GLP-1s. Semaglutide, you'll know it as Ozempic. Tirzepatide is more commonly known as Zepbound. Okay, so all these do, you inject them once weekly. It takes the edge off your cravings. You're more full for longer. Yeah, if you play a sport, you're probably going to have compromised performance because you're going to be so full all the time and probably not going to be able to train as well. So pros and cons. From my perspective, is there's a cost attached, certainly an expensive cost at this point. And most of the time people regain the weight after discontinuing because you don't change your identity or habits. You just eat less. And there are side effects. Don't get me wrong. At least 20% of trial participants discontinued, nausea, gastrointestinal issues. So that's either diarrhea, but more likely being very backed up for days and potentially weeks at a time. Doesn't sound fun to me, but they do work. Can you be on this long-term for weight loss? Well, that's the argument, but that's coming from the company that benefits financially from you being on them for life. So do we know if that's safe to do for the rest of your life? I don't know. Is it like blood pressure medication? If you can handle the side effects, tolerate the cost, maybe it's fine. We just don't know because we don't have enough historical data. So yeah, they're recommending that you do go on it for years and years because 2/3 gain the weight back. But is it really something you want to pay for forever? I don't know. I have better options. Nice segue. Open to a better way. Yes in the chat. No if you just want to take the drugs. That's fine too. Yeah, lots of people have many friends doing it. I think there's almost 1 million Canadians on a GLP-1 now. So if they're all dropping dead in a few years, we'll know. All right, we got yeses in the chat. This is an old graphic I need to update, but we're over 1,600 now. So real people, real results with a system built to last. That's what we promised in CalFit. And Brian started around this time last year. And we did our pre-summer challenge. Obviously, the visual change was there. He's got veins in his biceps now, but I think it was just, the system that he had. Now, a full year later, he's still well into maintenance, still maintaining this physique. And that's really the thing we want. The opposite of the Ozempic is just building habits built to last. Your identity, your mindset, all changes in the process so that there's no going back to the old you. And that takes time and effort. I had a conversation recently with someone that, hit their 30-pound loss milestone and confided in me just recently, actually, that this was what kind of was their tipping point. They were in a row that should have had a seatbelt extender, right? They needed it to get it over their belly, keep them anonymous. But the row they were actually put in did not have that. So the awkward situation here right before the fight takes off, a family of 4 that was in a row and then next to them had to move 3 of them back to his row so he could go into that row for the seatbelt extender. So I think he emailed me the next day. So that was his tipping point. Ideally, you don't need a tipping point of that degree, embarrassing situation to change. Like the fact you're on this call is a sign that you're serious. Just like Martha. I forgot to put her in there. Is she on the call? She might be. I can't scroll through. Anyway, we're about to wrap up. I just want to make sure you guys are clear that help is here if you need it. Because a simple plan is out there, right? You know what to do to some degree, I think, hopefully. But you need someone to check in. You need a community that cheers you on in the motivation phase. I mean, that's my belief anyway. That's what we've built here. I think that's what makes all the difference. That's where we get the results we do. And that's what I seek out in mentorships all over the place. But there is no later, only now. So the law of diminishing intent was introduced to me, gosh, probably over a decade ago. And we always kind of wait for, motivation. I'll start next Monday, which becomes next Monday, next month, next year. You have to act first. You have to take an intentional action to move towards your goals, and then the motivation comes. Then the results come. It's not the other order. It's not waiting for motivation, then you take action. You've got to force it at first. Hopefully that makes sense. You guys are all with me. The hardest part is the first decision to change. Once you make that choice, I feel the universe or higher powers are going to move mountains to help you get there, but only if you take that action and show that you're serious. Love it. I love the yeses in the chat. So that tipping point that our aforementioned client had on the airplane, if it happens, yeah, maybe use that as, that negative experience as positive fuel, But hopefully you don't need that, right? I mean, the goal is not to get to a tipping point where it's irreversible damage, heart attack, whatever. Everyone's situation is different, but do something. Do one small step in the right direction, and hopefully it compounds and the dominoes start to fall from there. So my belief is that you can approach nutrition in an 80-20 way, meaning 80% of the time it's healthy whole foods, 20% of the time it's fun. I don't like calling them junk foods, fun foods. Built around consistent habits. You're checking in and monitoring things because it's the only way you know like making progress. And focus on measurable outcomes like, oh, okay, my waist circumference is down. I'm getting stronger on this lift or that exercise. And that's essentially what you're after, is that pyramid, okay? So screenshot this. This is the checklist. If you want to see some measurable progress in the next month-ish, get those calories in check, get that protein up, strength train, do a HIIT workout if you're capable. It helps. Doesn't help as much as the other two things. Steps, potentially, which you didn't talk about, I actually forgot to put that slide in, it was the weekly protein fast, where it's just a low calorie day from maybe Sunday at dinner to Monday at dinner. Next level strategy to wipe out weekend overages, but I wouldn't say that's necessary for most. Sleep, hydration, and then one treat meal, and maybe explore peptides, you know, like we talked about, if it's the last resort. All right. Good stuff. We're moving along here, guys. Promise you. We're going to be right on time. So how to transition to maintenance after you've accomplished that, assuming you do, you lose 10 pounds on, say, an 1,800 calorie diet. Maybe as you transition, you bump those calories up by 250 next week. And then another 250 the following week. And hopefully you figure out where your weight stabilizes. It's roughly 500 or so calories higher than you ended the diet when you were losing a pound per week. Okay. So that's our simple kind of reverse to maintenance. Less emphasis on steps. We do keep protein constant. It might have a higher percentage in the fat loss phase, more than 150 grams, for example. And maintenance becomes less important. Okay. So just consider that as sort of the extra strategy to have in mind is not to completely abandon everything, but to build up your nutrition targets. All right, as promised, hopefully you've got the blueprint. You took notes, you took a few things away from this presentation that you're going to implement right away. Type yes in the chat if that makes sense. And type yes if you're open to some information. I know lots of you are already, I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys are in the program. We've got lots from the chat that have taken this leap already and have seen proof of concept. Maybe we should have you guys talk. But this is the guarantee I give nowadays. If you're over 40 or close, tried a lot of programs before, we guarantee you lose 2 pant sizes. Measurable 3 to 4 inches off your waist in our first phase, or you don't pay and I'll gift you a Costco gift card for wasting your time. I'm not confident in the process. Now you got to do your part. You got to actually check the boxes and show up. But that's what we guarantee when the results come. I'm a big fan of creatine, Jason. I wouldn't put it in as like a fat loss hack, but brain performance in the gym, brain health. Yeah, I would. It's a cheap supplement to try. Give it a couple weeks, see if it makes a difference for you. All right. Like I said, worked with a lot of people. So if it doesn't scare you off, that takes commitment and showing up, checking in with someone. And the first step is just a free assessment between the two of us. We'll get a game plan together. So everyone that's already a member has been through this. So you guys don't need to do it again, although we will book you a 90-day roadmap call if you want. But that's the link in the chat. Oops. There it is. To schedule that in, all right? And the first person who does it, I'm giving a little extra gift. So let's see who that is. I'm watching patiently. I will stare awkwardly at you guys until one person books. Good. Crystal, holy man, you're fast. All right. I will touch base with you after. It looks like Darcy's working on it. All right. So if that isn't showing anymore, Oh, sorry. On that chat, just to have clarity there, I'm not going to be a hard salesman. That's not my job. It's to give you an assessment of where you are, where you're stuck, how we might help you break through, right? That's all we do. And if it makes sense to explore options to work together, then we'll do that too. But hit that link if that interests you. If you want to take one measurable action from this call, do that. If you're not seeing any openings there, I think I opened up quite a few though, then you can do this as a nice plan B, or it's less of a commitment on your part. It's a complimentary assessment where I just go through this the next day or two via video. And, less intel on my end because it's not a real-time conversation, but at least I can give you some actionable tips as well. So do one of those two things if you want to take a real step towards your goals today. All right. Good stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Q&A. We've got time for this, so please use the chat to drop your questions on anything that may have came up today. I did pull a few from the chat. I think Jason asked about the dosage for protein or creatine. So for general performance, 5 grams a day, if you want the brain benefits, like there is some research showing it's might prevent Alzheimer's, or at least play a role, then that would be 10 plus grams per day. So experiment. It might work a little better if you go higher dose to start and then titrate down. All right, now you guys are quiet. Where are the questions? Let's get it. All right. Oh yeah, Danielle, yes, metabolism. When younger, could eat fast food daily, stay slim. It actually has, your metabolism doesn't change at all from 30 to 60 years old. The research is really clear on that. However, our behaviors, our lifestyle changes. We have more stress, we sit more because we're stuck at these jobs that take up 8 to 10 hours a day. That's more the impact. It's the residual impact of everything else. So audit your lifestyle, your day-to-day. How does it differ from when you were 20? Were you playing a bunch of sports? Were you moving more, hanging out with friends? Try to embody a bit of what you used to do, because that's the only difference. Menopause may play a role. Yeah, you were dancing at the bars, exactly. And probably freezing, shivering outside in line. That's a calorie burn. Do you have any thoughts on anti-inflammatory diets, Jen asks? Yes and no. Individual food choices make less of a difference than eating in a calorie deficit, exercising, walking enough. All those things help more. Now, obviously, quality whole foods are going to be anti-inflammatory versus highly processed. So we do want to try to lean towards healthier where possible. But if you're staying in a calorie deficit, you're walking a lot, and you're exercising, you're going to be reducing your inflammation considerably. Okay. Erica, new to tracking, started by actually weighing my food and entering it in for a full week. Eat way less than any recommended plan. How do you deal with that? Well, that's a loaded question. So I would ensure that you're ruling out any tracking errors or omissions if you're eating way under the recommended. Typically, if you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to be hungry at times, so you should be. Otherwise, something's off with the calculations or your portions. So I would rule that out first before trying to increase calories without gaining weight, as you say. Nolita, if you do some HIIT each day, does your body offset it by reducing the rate? Absolutely. What that 30-minute boot camp burned in calories the first time you did it is a fraction of what you burn 6 months later. Unfortunately, our bodies are adaptive machines, especially when it comes to exercise. The constrained energy model, if you want to research that, basically, they've shown tribes in Africa who 20,000 steps a day. Their bodies have become so efficient at that, they burn about the same calories as the North American sedentary people do. So that's the sad reality, is you can't out exercise or outrun your fork. What workouts do is tone and tighten and preserve muscle. And walking does help because there's less of a compensatory effect from that. But diet drives the bus. Tammy, can we wear a weighted vest every day? For sure. go for it. See what happens. More results than doing it less days. Cool. All right. Trevor, if you don't mind, I've called you out in the past just for someone to talk to besides myself today. You're labeled as guest, but
Oh, really? So I didn't sign in. My apologies.
no, I had the wrong link anyway, so that went
Yeah.
out to you guys. Just kind of to take us back, you've been in the program a bit now, but like, what was that tipping point for you? Was there one, or was it just a matter of wanting to get some changes done?
Oh, my weight. I was an accordion probably the last. My wife's sitting here laughing at me. For like the last couple of years. Like I made it all the way to like 264 and then worked my way down during COVID down to 212 and then slowly got back into bad habits and worked my way back up to like that 250 mark right before Christmas. And that's where I kind of like, after watching your videos and well, following you on social media, right? I just kind of like, okay, let's give him a call finally, right? And then, yeah, like just hit it and then joined. And then, all the challenges, the competitions, like that's what really keeps me motivated and keep me going to keep dropping weight and keep lifting. And yeah, like I said, like I bought the Peloton in COVID and sure, like I dropped 40 some odd pounds doing that. But I was just spinning every day. And um, once I stopped spinning every day, then I gained it back. I still love to spin and try to work it into my workouts, but they said like, sure, what'd you call it? You references like skinny fat, right? Like I
Mhm.
wasn't toned, and now like since doing the workouts that you set us up with, like I'm gaining muscle, gaining definition, um, right? And now what makes me happier, like I had my goal of trying to be like 10 to 12% body fat is when you put those images up, I'm like, okay, no, I'd be happy with 15%, right? So
Yeah.
and that's just seeing that today for the first time. Like, okay, now I got to change my weekly goal here, right?
Yeah.
It's a little
Yeah.
bit more achievable, right? And
That's
only
good. I like that.
wait.
Even
So
if 10 to 12 is temporary, you could push for that, but yeah, it's hard to sustain for the mere mortals. I love that. Lots to take away from that. The
yeah,
fact that you're cardio focused, losing weight on the scale, but the body composition wasn't quite there. Hitting 250 was sort of that tipping point that got
yeah,
you off the fence. Nice. So what are your results been? Obviously the community works for you. The
yeah.
points challenges work, but like what specifically have you taken away?
Well, just better meal choices and meal prep is the biggest thing, right? And then just being able to push that down onto my family and the kids and now they're eating better as well.
Mm.
Sometimes they don't like the spices that I put on everything, but whatever. But they're starting to make better choices too. And then now they're reading labels on how much protein's in everything and
Nice.
stuff, right? So they're more concerned, more conscious, let's say. So that's good. Um, right. Ultimately, like, yeah, I saw a great loss in weight.
Yeah.
Over the first 3 4 months, and then it kind of hit that plateau. So now we've readjusted our calorie intake and protein goals. So starting to see that come down again. So it's just I got to get back into finding more time to lift and everything, but just juggling. This is a busy season for me with
Mhm.
work and yeah, like yeah. So we'll get it in. I know I got to double up some workouts here and um, but yeah, but my big priority I need to do is try and prioritize sleep, which I struggle
Mm,
with all the extracurricular activities I do to support my kids and work, right? And travel. So
totally.
yeah,
Yeah. That's the beauty of it though, right? Is it still can work despite everything else on your plate. You know, the first 20 pounds come a little easier than the next 20. You're kind of experiencing that transition now. But
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, the fact
yeah,
that there's a community, there's a coach, that's what keeps you kind of dialed in. And otherwise,
absolutely.
if you're on your own, sometimes you hit a sticking point, you think nothing's working, and it's easy to kind of fall off at that point, right? I mean, that's human nature too. So
Definitely.
huge. Awesome. So last question for you is what would you say to someone that's in your former shoes, like on this call and not sure if this is legit, some random guy on the internet on Zoom?
Right. Yeah.
You know, what
This
was
isn't
what's the
staged. I don't know
guy?
if you see how red my face is. I like to turn red in the face.
That's me too,
When
hey? Yeah.
called upon. No, but I was always skeptical or figured I could do it myself and playing hockey, doing sports. But then once I said, like, once this help me, this just gives me the tools to hold me more accountable or stay competitive. I love the competitive nature of it, these challenges, and then I have those targets. If I don't have those set targets, then I'm blowing out of the water. I'm going to eat whatever because I'm hungry, and um or adding those daily goals of this is how much water you got to do, and then just I force myself to try and take as many pictures or track. As soon as I'm consuming something, everybody's like, "Oh, you're just on your phone all day." I'm like, "No, I am tracking what I'm doing right now." And um, if it's not tracked, it can't be measured. Is what I
Mhm.
do with work, and it just keeps me more compliant or goal orientated that way. So just to see the
Mhm.
results, which I think I'm seeing.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. From 250 to 220s.
yeah,
It's the proof is in the pudding, and the muscles definitely being built this time around too, which is quality over quantity.
yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate you taking the time, Trevor. Structure is what worked for you. Any other questions, guys? Do you want to draw the winner of the book? So hopefully someone has a question or can unmute that and share away if you want, or else we can call it and I'll have to draw that book winner once we're done because it might take me a little bit of time. We've got a question about protein bar, protein chips. I would just look at the label and see which one lines up better for your goals. Macronutrient breakdown. Protein bars, some are basically chocolate bars marketed as protein bars. So you got to be careful there. And anything like that is a stopgap. Like, it's always better to eat whole foods. And the next in line would be whey protein shakes, better split on nutrition than bars and chips and all these other things have. But those snacks certainly are convenient and can work. I was trying to see what I just threw out here. Yeah, the Alani New is what I had lately, and it's 30 grams of protein per 160 calories. So pretty damn good balance there.
Mitch,
Yes, Dan, go ahead.
yeah. Is there a time to have dinner before you go to bed? Because everyone keeps saying if you have it too close to bedtime, you're going to just put on the weight.
That's a myth that after 6 carbs magically end up in belly fat. So we could technically have you eat your last meal of the day at 9 p.m. and all your calories, and you would still probably lose fat if the right amount of calories.
Okay.
Not recommending that.
No, no.
But generally for quality of sleep, my rule of thumb is 3 hours out from bedtime, no more heavy meals.
Okay.
Maybe a snack sneaks in there, but you're gonna sleep a lot deeper if you don't eat too close to bedtime. That's the main reason, not that it's not digesting and
Oh,
you're gaining body fat from it.
that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Anyone else? Hopefully you got some takeaways either way. Good. All right, well, we can call it there. Again, if anything jumps out at you that you didn't want to share in a group setting, you guys know where to find me. Shoot me a message. And any questions, that's fine. If you want to fill out that assessment, I think the call calendars are booked now. See Darcy and Scott. So you could do that free assessment as a small dip your toe in, and I'll help you out as well that way. Thanks from Kirsten and Abbotsford. I love it. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your week. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.